Okay, better late than never. Uh, the reason this lecture is so late in being posted to Moodle was because I wanted to write pretty much the entire solution to your next programming assignment. Um, and while I'm not giving you the whole solution, obviously, I did want to make sure uh, that the code that I had given you for the linked list insertion and deletion and the item type that I wanted to use for this programming assignment would all work together and would all work in the way um, that I believed they should. And it looks like things are working. Um, I'm going to have to do a bit more testing to make sure that it is indeed working as I think it is. But for now, what I'm going to do is go over the construction of the list item type and um, the overloading of the relational operators for that data. And I will post that code to Moodle. So you'll get list item type.h and list item type.cpp. And that should assist you in getting started with building your solution to program 8. So let's get started. I'm going to share out a terminal window. So here's my terminal window. I have several files in here. I really don't need test.cpp. Okay, and just as a matter of showing you, this does indeed compile. And so there's the names of the files that you need to use, and there's also the compilation command that you'll need to use. So I'm doing this local on my laptop. I'm not on Colossus right now, but my laptop has G++ installed. So I'm going to look first at list item type.h. This is our specification. And I'm going to go through and walk through this file so that you can see what's going on here. Okay. So this file is obviously was written by me. It is for assignment 8, and it has a due date of April 24th. So I'm making this due in almost just a little over 2 weeks. Okay. Pretty typical for a specification of a class. You have the include for IOStream. You have the using namespace standard. Then you have the preprocessor directives to prevent redefinition warnings in compiler. And then we have some constants that you'll need. And so these constants are going to be, let's see. So these constants are going to be used inside of here. So there's an airport code length, and that's 3. So if you're familiar with airport codes, those are 3-letter codes. Like ORD is for O'Hare. DTW is for Detroit. MBS, I believe, is for Tri-Cities. And so those 3-letter codes are going to be part of this class. Each airport also has a city name, and I've limited those city names to 15 characters. Now, I'm starting to think about it, and 15 characters might be a little short on that. Yeah, that, I guess that'll work. And then there's also an altitude for these airports. So this is similar to the examples that I was giving in the PowerPoint slides, where you had a name and an altitude, so a city and the altitude of the city. And so in this case, there's going to be the altitude of the airport. And you know, Google knows all, Google tells all. So I went out and found the altitude of the lowest airport on Earth in feet. And I actually made a mistake here, because I think that's supposed to be negative. In fact, I know it's supposed to be negative. So insert negative there. And then the altitude of the highest airport on Earth. And so the lowest airport on Earth is in Israel, I believe, and the highest airport on Earth is in China. And so those are the limits for altitude on airports, and we'll use those to range check the value that is being used to set the airport's altitude. Okay. Now the class name, you'll notice that I put in the header block here. So the class name is airport. This is the specification for airport. And this holds all of the data for one airport and all of the methods. So our class is actually called airport, and I'm going to do what I did previously down here, which is to typedef that to list item type. And in the slides, list item type is the thing that we're using. So I've got airport, I've got a constructor, a destructor, a copy constructor, an overload of the assignment operator, an overload. Now, it turns out all of these operators you could do like the assignment operator. You could make them methods for inside the class. Okay. Now, if you look on page 1052, I believe it is, of our textbook, there's an explanation for you can do this either way when you're overloading operators. But there's also an explanation for certain operators why you need to friend them. Okay. And so friending just makes the functioning of these operators a little clearer and a little easier. And so so for the assignment operator, we're not friending it, we're making it a method. But then for all the other operators, the stream insertion operator, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to, and equal to, those are all friended. Okay. I did not supply an overload for, excuse me, yawning. I did not supply an overload for the stream extraction operator, and I'm thinking I probably should. So that'll be just a little bit of coding that we'll have to do today, or I'll have to do today. So I'm gonna copy that, put it in here, and create a stream extraction operator. Okay. Just like in the PowerPoint slides, when I was talking about overloading the relational operators, we're going to overload or write the code for less than, and then we're going to use less than in the definitions of the other 5. I've got a set code, a get code, a set city name, a get city name, a set altitude, and a get altitude. So those are my accessors and mutators. Now that I'm looking at those, I'm thinking I'd like to do my accessors and my mutators um, in a block. So I'm going to do mutators first. So I'm going to rearrange a little bit of this stuff. So there, I've collected up my getters and setters together. Okay. Go up here. And put in a little bit of commenting. And that's about that. So I'm going to get out of here. I need to remember to do this operator. Okay. So get out of there. Now we're going to go to list item type.cpp, which is going to have all of these defined. Now you'll notice that I have commented this according to the style given in the syllabus. So you can see there's a massive amount of commenting in here. And then for every function, including the constructors, the destructors, the copy constructors, I have given it a comment block or a function comment block. Okay. Scrolling down, there's our assignment operator, and this is our extraction operator. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to put that in and alter it so that it's the stream extraction operator. So let's see, there's figuring out how many lines of code I need to get here. So 16 lines of code. This is always confusing when I start copying and pasting these because they all look the same. This is now an iStream. So it's an iStream operator. That's an iStream. This should be an in. Input stream that gets returned. So all I'm doing here is just being lazy. I didn't want to retype a whole bunch of stuff. And so I copied and pasted. So that it made it easier. I didn't have so much typing. Okay. So let's go back up to the top of this file and look at what we're doing in here. So I've got the IO stream, I've got the C string library, I've got the C standard lib brought in, and I've got list item type.h brought in. Using namespace standard, always throw that in. My comment block for the file, which says this is the class airports implementation. The methods required for the airport, for class airport. Now, the first thing we do is the constructor. And so the constructor is going to put the empty string for the city, the empty string for the airport code, and 0 for the altitude. Those seem like reasonable initializers. And so that's all we're doing. Notice that I'm using the string copy for the city and the airport code because those are C strings. The destructor, there's no dynamically allocated memory here, so there's really nothing to do in the destructor. It's just an empty function, okay? The copy constructor. And here, the copy constructor will get invoked when you pass an airport as a parameter to a function. There's a couple of other places where the copy constructor will get used. So in this case, if you look, I have the original right here. That's the parameter name. And I'm copying into the current object. So I'm copying into this. So if I had wanted to, I could have said things like this dot city. Okay, this is the keyword. It says the object I'm in right now. But since the context is already this, I don't have to do that. So I'm going to string copy from the original city into the current object city. Whoa, I just found a code error. That should be orig dot airport code. And then altitude from orig.altitude. See what happens even though it compiles? I find code errors as I'm walking through the code. This is why in industry you will do code walkthroughs. You'll have a bunch of people stuffed in a conference room, and they will literally, everybody at the table will walk through the code line by line by line looking for mistakes. And so I just found one. Here's the operator, the assignment operator overload. And so this one looks a lot like the copy constructor. So it's going to do a string copy from the right-hand side of the assignment operator into the current object. And at the end, it returns the current object. So it returns a reference to this. And that's so we can chain those equal signs together. Not that we're going to do that, but we can. Here's the operator overload for the stream insertion operator. The stream insertion operator is going to pretty print an airport. So you'll see it says airport. Here's some, I think that was just random typing that I hit when I was fixing the airport code thing up here. Pretty sure. Okay. So it prints out the airport and then indents the city and the altitude for the airport. So the airport code is left justified. The city and the altitude are not. Here's the stream extraction operator, and this is going to extract straight into the airport code, the city, and the altitude in that order. And so those will be used to read in data, okay, from an input file. And then this returns the input stream. The less than. So the less than operator is the only one I'm going to overload with code that uses the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and uses the string compare. So we're going to keep these things in alphabetical order by city name. So that's going to be our key value. So in here, I'm using string compare. And let me put some spaces in here so it's a little easier to read. So string compare is going to compare the left-hand side dot city to the right-hand side dot city. So that's the thing on the left of the less than, and the thing on the right of the less than sign, or the less than operator. It checks to see if LHS.city string compared with RHS.city returns a value less than 0. If it does, that means that the string compare that the left-hand city is less than alphabetically than the right-hand city, or comes before alphabetically. And so that's exactly the less than that we wanted. So we're going to return true in that case. Otherwise, it's either equal or it's greater than, and we're going to return false for those. So that's the code. You have to work through that in your head, figuring out exactly how string compare works. And so we only want to write that code once, and then use less than to define all the other relational operators. So here's the greater than. Well, I can rearrange the parameters, right? So I've got the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And if I want to define that as greater than, then all I have to do is return right-hand side less than left-hand side. So I've redefined, or I've used Boolean algebra to give an equivalent statement using only the less than here. Less than or equal to, same way. I'm just going to say not greater than, basically, but this isn't the greater than, this is the greater than from up here. And so it's written as less than. And so it's just saying not this, and the not of a less than is greater than or equal to, the not of a greater than is less than or equal to. And so, so this is Boolean, this is Boolean logic, Boolean expressions to rewrite less than or equal to using only less than. Here's the greater than or equal to. And again, I just rewrite it. Left-hand side less than right-hand side, and the not out front. And honestly, these are things that you work through once, and once you know how to do it, then you just use them over and over. I figured this out, that's got to be 14 years ago. And so I've been doing this ever since. And I'm not sure that many people do this. I know I've seen people who take code like this and rewrite it in every single operator. I don't do that. I'd rather, if I'm going to change the way less than, or change the way the relational operators work, I'd rather just change this piece of code up here and have it cascade through all of these. Okay. And so, so greater than or equal to, I've rewritten that. Not equal to, you know, not equal to is basically the right-hand side is less than the left-hand side, or the left-hand side is less than the right-hand side. And that will work. Equal to, just the not of this. But when you not across an or, it turns it into an and each of the pieces are knotted. And so that's the whole thing there. Okay. So those should all work. Those are our relational operators. And really the only ones we need in our insertion code and our deletion code for the linked list is less than and equal to. And the others, if you're going to overload one, you might as well overload all 6. So there we go. Now I've got my setters. So set code. So I've got a setter for set code. I've got a getter for code, so called get code. I've got so in the set code, because this is a string, I'm checking to make sure that the length of what was passed in is not whoa, string length. Again, walking through code, I'm finding another error. So if the string length of the code is less than or equal to city name length, what the heck was I doing here? Wow. Oh, I see the error. I used the wrong constant here. Notice how this all works or comes out when I'm looking at these things. So I'm going to go over, this is going to be in list item type dot h. Yeah, airport code length is what goes in there. And that does need to be a not equal and return -1. Else, and I didn't put in the code here for doing the else. Wow. str n cpy airport code, comma, the code, comma, airport code length. There we go. Wow, I had a couple of errors in there. This is a good example of why when you come to me and you say, it's almost working, I've just got a compile error that I need to get rid of. No, they're not almost working. This has been compiling for me now for a couple of hours. But there's some of this that I haven't used. So I've been using, have I used set code? No, I haven't used set code in the code that I've been testing with. And so that's part of the problem here. So get code works. Just returns not the city. Wow. What was I doing here? What's even more disturbing is that I must be working on lack of sleep, and I'm being slipshod because I've actually tested this stuff and thought it tested out okay. And it's like, nope, nope, that's not. Even my comment block was wrong. Wow. Okay. So airport get code returns the airport code. Um, Set city name. Uh, String copies the city. Um, Actually, I think I want to put in um, some error checking here. Oh no, actually I don't. That's right. There was a reason why I did this. Remember when I said about the city name being only 15 characters long and then that was sufficient for our application? If a city name is passed in that's longer than that, the string copy will only copy up to the city name length. And so that's going to give us a truncation on the city name. So if the city name is longer um, than 15 characters, this will effectively truncate that city name. Um, so that actually is doing exactly what I wanted it to do without the error handling or error decoding. Get city name returns the city, set altitude, does the range check on the altitude, making sure that we don't have an error. If we do have an error, it returns -1. Otherwise, it copies it and returns 0. Get altitude just simply returns the altitude, and that is everything. That is the whole thing. Okay, there's not a lot of code there. There's a lot of comment block there. And now I'm just going to rerun the compilation to make sure I haven't screwed anything up, and I did. Holy smokes, what did I do? It's got to be the stream extraction operator. This just looks like stream extraction operator to me. Holy moly. That's a lot of broken stuff. There we go. Take the first error and work on that. Don't do anything else. Airport code 3. This is the extraction operator. Ah, it's complaining about the extraction operator being private. Okay. So let's go up here where I overloaded this. Hmm. No, that's what I get for trying to write code on the fly. I have an iStream, the operator. Um, it takes an iStream and a const airport reference to an airport object, and then uses in dot object dot airport code. And it's complaining that that is private. However, I friended that, right? Yep, I friended it. Which means that should have worked. Well, that's interesting. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment. I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to debug this and figure out what I'm doing, and then I'll be back in. So right now I'm at 38 minutes of lecture, and so I've got another 38, 40, I've got 12 minutes. So hopefully when I come back in 12 minutes, I will be able to explain what happened with the stream in extraction operator and why it wasn't working the way that I thought it should. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Actually, it was just a silly mistake on my part when I wrote the stream extraction operator. So what I had to do, here, let me go in and show you real quick what was done here. I had to remove the const that was right here. Turns out there's a reason for that. I can't treat that object as a const, even though it's just a reference to the object, if I want to be able to change what's in the object. And since I'm extracting an airport code, a city name, and an altitude and setting them in the object, OBJ, then that can't be a const. Weird, but that's the way it worked. And so if I get out of here, right in here, you'll see, whoops, you'll see that code that was giving me fits before now works. So get out of here, and this compiles cleanly. So back into list item type. We had worked our way all the way through this, and that's that. Now, I've got some more testing to do. I've got to build some longer lists and check to make sure that everything's working the way that I think it does. But for the time being, I'm going to post the code and today's lecture on Moodle. And I'll send out a message as soon as that's done. And then I will probably have the official write-up for the programming assignment posted tomorrow at some point. And so it'll be due in 2 weeks. This one's a long one. This one's got a lot of really niggling stuff. I've written almost all of the solution. Not quite all, but almost all of the solution. Okay. And don't wait until it's due. I'm giving you 2 weeks. Okay. You want to get started early on this one. So I'll get out of here. Okay. Wait a second. I didn't share that. Shoot. My bad. Here, let's share that and do that again. Here's what I had to do. Okay. I'm just going to say the same thing again. I had to remove the const from here. And the reason is that that const means that I can't change the object, but since this is the stream extraction operator, I actually want to be able to change the values that are in this object, the private data members. And so I remove the const from here. And I remove the const. Right here. So I got rid of the const that was right here as well. And now that code that was giving me problems before actually works. So pardon that little blunder on not sharing the terminal window with you. Okay, and then you can see that this all compiles without an error. So now what I'm going to do is what I just said while you were staring at a black screen. So I'm going to post these two files, the list item type.h and the list item type .cpp, and the video link on Moodle. I'll send out a message, and then tomorrow you'll get your program8.doc file on Moodle. That'll give the description of what I want you to do for your programming assignment, and that should be that. And we have finished our 4th week of online courses. There's only 2 weeks of online courses left. Remember, you've got a deadline coming up a week from tomorrow. And that deadline is whether to choose whether you're doing pass, fail, or for grade. And then 2 weeks, I believe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow, you have to you can withdraw from classes up to 2 weeks from tomorrow. If you have any questions about full-time versus part-time financial aid impact, the financial aid impact of moving to pass-fail as opposed to getting letter grades, anything that's sort of, student loans, that kind of stuff, I have been encouraged to tell you to call or drop email to the financial aid office. And so you need to, if you need some answers on the impacts of grading, pass fails, that kind of stuff, withdrawing from classes, if you need to know the financial aid impact of that, just call the financial aid office or drop them an email. And they will answer your questions. Basically, they said with the stimulus law that was passed by the federal government, it's basically their rules and regs for federal aid versus state aid versus scholarships, etc. These are in flux, and so they said that it's kind of changing almost day by day. And so to get the most recent information, talk to them. And with that, I'll drop the share. I'll stop this, and I will see you. Well, I'm not going to see you, but I'll be back next week with more lectures.